Should be alright. Okay, so we get in some history, right? You just talk naturally, all right? Maybe you can start by telling me your full name.
Okay, so I'm Samuel Robinson St Juste.
Okay. Do you know how you got that name? Were you named after anybody in
Well,
particular?
my father gave me that name, but actually it was not that name he gave me. He gave me Samuel Richardson. That is some family name. But then now, when they put it in the registration book, they put Robinson. I didn't know that until the time when I traveled, when I went for my birth certificate in order to travel to St. Croix. That is the time I got to know I'm not Richardson, I'm Robinson. Yeah.
Do you know who the Richardson was?
I didn't get to know him. No, that was some ancestor.
Okay, so when were you born and where were you born?
Okay, I was born 1942 in the village of Labrie on family land, a place called Tibuk. But what I noticed they have, it's like a court. They have sports, there's sports going on there. That's at the back of the Labrie. It's close to the sea. It has beach land. Yeah.
Okay.
I was born there. I was born there in the time of the Americans. When my father worked in the Americans, and they were living in Beaufort. But at the time, my father said he didn't know nobody in Beaufort to help my mother with the delivery. So all his family is in Labrie. So he took whatever family there was, he took them to Labrie. That was Dorothy, yeah, Dorothy, and, and Rice, older brother of ours. Yeah.
So they were living first in Viewfort.
Beaufort, yeah.
Where in
From
Viewfort?
Castries,
Okay.
they went down to Beaufort. My father worked with the Americans. That's how we got ourselves there.
What do you know about how your parents met each other?
Um, all I could tell about that is my mother was a Seventh Adventist sometime before my father. That is when my father met my mother in the Seventh Adventist church. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, tell me about your mother. Was she born in St. Lucia? Was she St. Lucian? What's her history?
She was
What's her
born,
name? Tell us her name.
she's Victoria Estwick, or she was Victoria Estwick, and she became Victoria St. Juste. Um, Her father took her to Barbados when she was a little girl. Um, Her mother worked with the Castries Town Council. So her father took her to Barbados, to her grandmother, to her aunt, something like that. So she went over to Barbados. And when these people died, um, she came back to St. Lucia to meet her mother. Yeah,
Was her father Bajan?
father's pure Belgium.
Okay. All right. So you were born in Labrie.
In Labrador.
Did you grow up in Labrie?
No,
Okay, what happened
after
that caused
we,
you?
um, after I was born, don't know how long, but the family they moved back to Beaufort, where my father worked with the Americans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were your other brothers born in Library?
No,
Those younger than you?
no, I am the only one who was born in Library. They were born in Beaufort. Dorothy, my older sister, was born in Castries before they had gone down south to Beaufort.
Okay. And Uncle Rice lived with y'all during that
Uncle
time?
Rice lived with the family in Beaufort at the time.
Now, that would have been the time of World War II. What were things like in St. Lucia as far as you can remember?
Well, no, I had no idea. I was too small to know what
Okay.
was going on.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But before the Americans, they had uh, an agricultural movement known as Minda, where they planted a lot of cotton, they planted rice, they planted peas, corn, from what I could remember, from what I knew when I grew up. Yeah. The Minda was a company, an agricultural company from Barbados. Yeah. And then the Americans came and took over a vast amount of land in the Beaufort area. And then there was no Minda again, as far as I was told.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
Um, First I went to school at home. My father left work school lesson for me when he went to work. So when I first went to school, a place called Auger, because while we were in Beaufort, the government opened an agricultural place, a place they call Black Bay. They had the Bajans living there. And then after that, the Bajans went to Barbados. The Minda program came to an end, so and the houses, there were two lines of houses, if not more, there. And so the government offered people to raise animals and plant provision and so on, rice, peas, whatever. And while we were there, there was that Auger school that opened its doors with one Mr. Beausoleil and his wife, Mr. Beausoleil. So my father took us to that school. At the time it was Dorothy, myself, and Isaac. The three of us went to the Auger school. On entering school, they didn't know exactly which class to put me. So they had me standing up for a whole day, the first day. They had me standing up the whole day. The next day they had me standing up the whole day. That's 2 days. And on the third day, they put me in Standard 1 and 2. Standard 1 and Standard 2. So I used to do lessons in those two classes, Standard 1 and Standard 2, because my father used to give me lessons at home.
Can you remember how old you were about that time?
I was around 7 years. I was around 7 years.
Okay. And did you finish school at Auger?
No. My father, being a Seventh Adventist, he strongly believed that his children should go to church school. So the talk about going to Miku to attend the Miku primary school that came into discussion. So from there, we went back to Jufort and we went to Miku.
Okay, so you lived in Miku.
So then we lived in Miku.
Okay.
We lived in Miku for a long time.
Okay. So you attended school in Auger and then in Miku.
Yeah.
Okay.
Auger Government School and Miku St Adventist School.
Okay. And did you finish school at Miku?
No, by the time I got to standard 5 and 6, I left school. Things were not good enough for me to stay in school because the family got disturbed by my father becoming a member of the Shepherd Law, and we find ourselves by ourselves because the Americans closed their doors in Newport, and my father went to Castries. So he took Isaac along with him. And Dorothy, myself, Amos, and Ruben stayed in me.
Where was Rice at that time?
So Rice had left long. He had left long here. He had gone to Castries. He reached as far as America. He went to America in the immigration business. Yeah. He went to America. And he stayed there for a number of years. And well, it's a long story. But after so many years, he came back to St Lucia. He went to America again, but then now he was sent back because he was married in America, and the wife saw to it that he was, what do they call that?
Deported?
He was deported.
How did you do as a student in school?
Very well. Very, very well. Because I studied in 2 classes because the teacher found I was too young. I was too young to be in a class like 2nd and 3rd standard, and I knew enough not to be in 1st standard. So I was in 2nd and 3rd standard, 3rd and 4th, 4th and 5th, and then by the time I hit 5th and 6th, I left school.
Yeah. Was that your choice to leave?
Yeah, I could see my mother straining to pay school fees. Yeah, I could see the strain. I knew what the strain was because Daddy was not with us anymore for so many years. So, and actually, she worked in the Americans, but after the Americans, that's the second batch of Americans. They went away. The base was closed, so then the whole family was at Miko.
What did your father do? What was his line of work?
Well, he worked with his brother. His brother was a builder. His brother was a building contractor, so he worked with his brother. They built, from what I can remember, they built the post office in Beaufort. They built a place they used to call Mama Nan. That was at Ansafal in New Dock. and a number of buildings. He used to contract for Ralph Juridi and for Borai, Louis Borai. And then when there was nothing there, then they went up to Castries to work in the CDC buildings. So they worked in the CDC buildings in Castries.
Tell me about your father's education.
Among them, among the family, there were uncle. My father was the eldest. My father,
And
Uncle Reno.
his name was.
My father's name was Julian Francis St Juste. My uncle Reno was Renaud St Juste. And there was Uncle George, there was Uncle George and forget that uncle. But anyway, and there was another uncle, a son, an outside child of my grandfather, which he took, and he brought up that child. He was known as Uncle Hilton. When I got to know him, he was working on a oil tanker in the time of the war. He was working in the oil tanker, and he was mostly in Trinidad. But when he's on leave, he used to come to St Lucia. Hilton. Yeah. The name of the uncle I was looking for, Uncle George, Uncle. Look how I miss the man's name. Anyway.
Did you have any aunts by your father?
We had several aunts, but I didn't get to know them. And I got to know Aunt Selena when she came from England. Yeah. Aunt Selena. She was here, and then she went back to England on medical business, and she died there.
Okay. What was your grandfather's name?
He was Joseph St Juste.
Okay.
He was the image of my father. Bald head, a little bit of hair going around the head. Pure bald head.
And what did he do? What was his line of business?
Well, he had business in Castries. He was situated exactly where Courts is. He had all that area there where Courts is. And he was at the time he was the only person with a pawn shop. He had a big grocery business. He had a store. And he had a pawn shop. So people would come there and pawn things, whatever. That is, I've never seen one since after his. Well, when he had that, I was not born yet anyway. But my father told us about a pawn shop that his father had.
Did you meet him?
No, at all. When after the Castries fire, that his business got burned. He went to Cayenne, and he didn't come back. He stayed in Cayenne. And his wife took care of the children. They had a plot of land at Montbidon, which is still there. But Uncle Renaud sold some of it, and he paid his brothers their share, and he built a house on the land which is existing some of his girls lives there, like Martha and so on. Whenever they come to St Lucia, some of them, that is where they live. The building is there.
Do you know the your grandmother's name?
The one,
Joseph's wife.
um, not really. I can't quite remember her name. Can't quite remember her name.
So have you ever, did you meet any of your grandparents?
No. The family for our grandmother, the family for our grandmother came from Labrie. They are in Labrie. It's a lot of family in Labrie. Yeah.
Do you know what her maiden name was?
I don't remember. I think I used to know, but I
All right. So, of the places that you lived, where do you have the strongest memory of? Labrie, um, Black Bay, Miku. Where do you have more
I
memories?
have no memory of Labrie to say because I was a baby.
Okay.
Miku, I grew up to be a number of years. I grew up to be something like 15 years in Miku. And I have fond memory of Miku. Yeah, fond memory. It's a place that I love. And I always wish I didn't leave Miku.
Okay. Where
But
in
I
Miku
left
did you live?
Miku in the village.
Okay.
But I left Miku to go to Castle to work with my uncle.
Okay, so tell me what a typical day would be like. Let us say a weekday, you are a student at school. What time do you wake up? What are some of the things you have to do before school starts?
Well, because Daddy was not around to take care of us, I had it very difficult. I would wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. There was a St. Adventist lady living close by called Sister Masley. She would wake me up. And then I would go and meet Sister Rose to carry the bread. That lady was a baker. So to carry the bread from her home to the oven.
That's the uncooked bread.
Uncooked bread, the loaves, the uncooked loaves. And then at a certain time she would leave her home and she would go to the oven to start sweeping the oven, sweeping out the fire, and load the oven with the uncooked loaves and so on. Then, so when she had the big basket of bread, that time I would finish carrying the bread from her home to the oven. And then my second business was to carry the basket of bread to the street. There was a place by the street where you have a stool and a chair. I would sit on the chair, a basket of bread on the stool, and I would start to sell while she is in the oven taking care of the last bit of bread and so on. And I would feel the heat, because it's hot bread from the oven, the heat coming down on my shoulder, but she would make a pad. With an empty flour bag, she would make a pad, put it on and put the basket of bread and so on. So as soon as she finished taking out the bread from the oven, and she took over the basket of bread by the road, then I would go to my second job, would be carrying water for a lady, a place they call Asulalin. At Tet Asulalin, that's at the top of the mountain, on the line in English.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would, most time there's no water in the pipe. There would not be water in the pipe for several months, sometimes years. And I would go to the river. Now it depends on where the gang is going. If it's the Trumase River or if it's the Volet River. There were two rivers. On entering or leaving Miku, there would be the Trumase River and there would be the Volet River. So I don't know how long, I wouldn't remember how long I did that when I developed a very bad headache. A very bad headache and a bad shoulder. The shoulder is the heat of the bread coming down. It affected that shoulder. The headache is after carrying the hot bread, then I would carry the water. Yeah. The hot bread, I used to have a towel. The lady would make a big towel for me, but the bread was the bucket on my head. Yeah.
So what kind of pay did you get for that kind of work?
It's terrible to tell you that. The lady used to give me 2 penny loaves. Yeah. 2 penny loaves. And that would be for the family. My mother always used to say she wouldn't eat out of it because that's not even enough for us. And the lady for the water was $2 a month to carry the water. I would have to full everything in the she also used to bake bread. So her home would take a lot of water. And then she needed a bathtub full of water. She would bake a big bathtub from Cayenne. Yeah.
So how many trips would you have to make?
It's several in the morning and several in the evening. But those in the morning was when I come from the oven, I have to make those trips. And the one in the evening, wherever I am, wherever I go to the estate or whatever I go to the estate to do, mango, breadfruit, whatever it is, I have to come down early enough, or whatever time I come down, I would have to go to the river, carry water for the lady. She had a shop and she used to make bread and stuff like that.
What was the economic situation of your family like around that time?
The economic situation
Of your family at that time?
It was a thing that people would call dog eat dog. It was terrible. Yeah. Now, that same water situation, I had several people carrying water for old people. I used to carry water for Sister Masne, better known by the villagers as Mezedoiska. I used to carry water for Mezanana. I used to carry water for Lisida. I used to carry water for Matiwe. That's 5. On Fridays, I had to carry water for Sister Charles, who was coming from Diriso. But she had a house in the village, in the Miko village. But she lived in Diriso. So on Fridays, I had to carry fresh water and put there for her, so that when she come down on Sabbath, she can get the water.
And the pay was about the
Well,
same?
this was voluntary. Yeah, this was voluntary.
You chose to do that, or your mother made you do that?
No, I chose to do that.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about school. What were things like in school in terms of books and writing material and
When finally, when my mother got work with the Americans, well, I was okay with books. I had a reading book. I had a health book. Reading book, a health book, a geography book, and exercise books. That is like, I would have 2 exercise books. I would have a 40 page and a 16 page exercise book. And then that is one of the reasons why I left school. Is my mother was not working with the Americans anymore. And there was a program in school that parents complain about children holding their children's books. So we used to share books. That was no problem. But then suddenly there came that problem that they don't want children to hold other children's books. You share. And that came to a stop.
but did you enjoy school?
Very much. Very, very much. I love school. But what I didn't like about school is most times I cannot go. I have to go and carry bananas. So what I would do is, when after the arithmetic we have intermission. So I would not go back to school. I would go to the forest to meet different people, to work with them in the forest.
Is that something that used to happen only with you, or were there other children in that similar
Well,
situation?
it used to happen with most of the children on their own plantation. Yeah. It used to happen with most of them, but on their own plantation.
So for you, where did you go? You said you went to the forest. Whose estate were you?
They were the Samuels. They call them the Alces. And they were the constables. These were my main estates that I survived on. Those 2 estates. There's a lady called Helen Alcee. In those days, she was Helen Constable. Well, their estate is scheduled to be. The Alcees, there was one who I just came from her funeral sometime last month. Joyce Samuel.
Okay. Where were these estates?
They were on the Maho Road. They were lined up on the Maho Road. Yeah. It was that road coming from the village, when it reaches a place they call Wallet, it would part on going to Castries, if you want to say Monrepo or Castries, and the one going to the forest. It reaches as far as Cillier, that is close to Soufrière. Or to put it better, that was close to Font Saint-Jacques. Because the sawyers would tell you, when they go to the forest to saw wood, they could help people at Font Saint-Jacques, calling their pigs, feeding the pigs, calling the pigs.
What was transportation like in those days?
You walk, your feet was what you enjoyed that. That was no problem to us because you have no choice. Every now and then there was a truck that would go up the Maho Road to bring down boards or posts for the sawyers. They would bring those boards to Castries or they would bring them to Soufrière. And you would get a ride to go up to the forest. But when it's coming back loaded with material. So it's when it's going up. If you're lucky, because it would leave Miku around sometime 2 o'clock in the morning, sometime 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you're lucky to be on board, sometime when you reach up there in the forest, it's dark up there. So what we would do, there are boards leaning on the trees. We would put down some boards and lie down and sleep. Yeah. And when the sun began to come up, people start passing, we would put the boards back and then go about our business.
Okay. Did you not have worries about snakes or?
In those days, no,
anything of
nothing
that
like
sort?
that.
Okay.
In those days, because we were told